The NHL recently held a Board of Governors meeting to discuss the potential of the salary cap going up sooner than the league previously thought. And with that bit of news, we thought it would be fun to take a look at the 10 worst contracts currently holding teams back from their true potential thanks to their cap hit. Stick around because you won't want to miss a second of this video. Number 10, Matt Barzal. I can already hear Islanders fans screaming at me for this pick, but hear me out. Barzal has never had a season over a point per game since his rookie campaign when he scored 85 points in 82 games. Yes, I think that Barzal has amazing speed, quick hands, and sees the ice really well in the offensive zone. However, he's clearly not a game-breaking talent that drives the offense on this Islanders team. He's a talented player, don't get me wrong, but is he worth $9.15 million per season for the next 8 years? I would say no. Even with the knowledge that the cap is going up significantly in the coming 5 years, maybe this contract will age well, and as of this recording, Barzal has 7 points in 7 games, however, none of them are goals, and his last 4 seasons he's been significantly under a point per game, and there is just no chance that other teams would be giving a player who scores less than a point per game anything more than $6 million. He has the potential to live up to his contract, but he is playing in a spot in which the offense goes to die. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see with this one. Number 9, Tage Thompson. Yes, you're correct, listeners. Thompson's new contract doesn't kick in until next season, but that is why it's so bad. Tage Thompson had a breakout year for the Buffalo Sabres last season, scoring 38 goals and 30 assists for 68 points in 78 games. While that sounds good on paper, the stats tell a much scarier story that the front office of the Sabres clearly didn't look much into. Thompson's previous career high in goals was 8, and his career high in points was 14. This absurdly high points increase came from a wildly high shooting percentage bender that Thompson rode all season long, which was a shocking 7% higher than his previous career high. Obviously, Thompson cannot continue to shoot at a 15% for the rest of his career, so giving him a contract worth $50 million over the next 7 years, which gives the contract an AAV of $7.1 million per season? Well, what makes this even worse is that following this season, if the Sabres hadn't yet signed him, he would have become an RFA, meaning that he would have been under team control. If Thompson underperformed his contract, which the numbers say he will, then Buffalo would have to just shoot themselves in the foot when they could have just waited a year to see what he was actually made of and signed him then. But of course, if he had another massive season, which he still could, then he could meet his contract extension's lofty expectations. Number 8, Sergei Bobrovsky. I remember the day the Florida Panthers finally found their goalie in the future of Sergei Bobrovsky, and the entire league nodded their head and agreed that a $10 million per year salary for an aging goalie was worth it, as Bobrovsky has paid his dues in Columbus and he had proven that he can be a Vezina caliber goalie. Little did everyone know that this would turn out to be one of the worst contracts in the NHL. Unfortunately for the Panthers, however, this contract was bad from day one, as in the very first season with the Cats. Bobrovsky put up a .900% save percentage, which was the lowest in his career since 2011-2012. Since being in Florida, Bob has never had a saver percentage higher than 0.913% and has an average of 0.906% since playing for the Panthers. Paying $10 million for a player who doesn't even play every game is rough, but when he plays poorly most nights on top of that, that is just downright ugly. Number 7, Jeff Skinner. I wanted to split up the bad Buffalo contracts so they weren't back-to-back, but I couldn't place Skinner any higher than this, as he has had some success while on his insane $9 million per season contract. Skinner pulled a fast one on the Sabres when he put up 40 goals during a 1-year deal, which caused the Sabres to massively overreact and sign him to an 8-year deal worth $72 million. In his first season after signing the contract, he put up a measly 23 points in 59 games and then followed up his bad season with an even worse season, putting up a pathetic 14 points in 53 games. However, last season he had a bit of a resurgence, putting up 63 points in 80 games. While he did have a nice season last year, it still wasn't worth the $9 million he makes, and unless he has a season in which he scores 100 points, Jeff Skinner will never be close to worth the value of his contract. Number 6, John Tavares. Leaf fans are going to be mad, but they're going to be mad regardless of who is on this this list, but yes, John Tavares and his $11 million per year make this list easily. Much like his former New York Islander teammate Matt Barzal, Tavares has only scored more than a point per game throughout a season 4 times throughout his career, and for somebody getting paid only $1.5 million less than the league MVP Connor McDavid, that is astoundingly bad. Moreover, as he gets older, he has shown the entire league that skating is not his strong suit, which has often left him on the wrong side of a 2-on-1. Moreover, his contract runs until the summer of 2025, which means he will be lugging around his slow butt for at least 3 more seasons. Number 5, Darnell Nurse. The Edmonton Oilers are littered with a couple of big contracts, however, 2 of them go to 2 of the best players in the league, and they both happen to be bargains as both. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl score over 100 points per season, making them essentially priceless. However, the third biggest contract on the star-studded squad belongs to defenseman Darnell Nurse. Now, Nurse is a good defenseman who is most likely a number 2 or 3 D-man on any team in the league, with some exceptions. However, the Oilers were taken to the cleaners by Nurse during his latest contract extension, as he felt like he was worth the same amount of money as a defenseman that signed a contract just weeks before he did, essentially handcuffing the Oilers. The Oilers didn't want to spend the $9.25 million per year that they did eventually give him, but they also didn't want to lose him as his defensive game is solid. However, the big man has only put up more than 35 points twice in his entire career and has only scored more than 5 goals 4 times in his career as well. He does log almost 23 minutes per night on average throughout his career, and a lot of those minutes are against quality competition, making him a good player, but nowhere near a $9 million player, especially when you consider the fact that Cale Makar and Roman Josi, the players who finished 1 and 2 in Norris voting last year, make less than him. Number 4, Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Vlasic was a very solid defensive defenseman for a number of years back in the early to mid-2010s, but over the past 5 to 6 seasons, Vlasic has been a below-league average defenseman, making $7 million per year. His contract is weighing heavily on the rebuilding of the San Jose Sharks due to it being essentially untradeable, as no team wants to take on $7 million of essentially dead cap space. Much like Nurse, Vlasic logged some hard minutes, but over the past 3 seasons, Vlasic has lost anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes a night from his previous average, meaning that he is obviously playing less minutes, but less meaningful minutes, as he is clearly playing against the other team's weaker lines. Paying this much for a defenseman who can be replaced by essentially any other defenseman in the league is certainly tough for the Sharks. Number 3, Seth Jones. The Chicago Blackhawks were desperate to avoid a rebuild during the 2020 offseason and did everything they could to remain relevant, including a trade with Columbus, which saw the Blue Jackets get blue-chip prospect Adam Boqvist, along with draft picks and other prospects for Seth Jones, who the Blackhawks immediately signed to an extension worth $9.5 million per season. Jones has been a shell of his former self when he played for the Nashville Predators and when he initially suited up for the Blue Jackets. And since he's been on the Blackhawks, he's been a very inconsistent and defensively unreliable defenseman. His constant back-end blunders make it impossible to look at this contract and think it's even decent, let alone good, especially when you consider the fact that he signed for 8 more seasons and won't be off the Blackhawks' books until 2030. Number 2, Tyler Seguin. There was a time in which Tyler Seguin was one of the best players in the league, which is why it's hard to blame Stars management for the contract, as nobody would have expected it to age as poorly as it has. But he is getting paid $9.85 million per year against the cap, and over the past 160 games he has 107 points, which for a player making that money, he should be scoring at least a point per game pace. Seguin's game just hasn't transitioned well to the faster and more skilled game, which has left him in the dust. However, he may still have a chance to have 1 or more 2 decent years before he retires. Number 1, Erik Karlsson. This one hurts me. Erik Karlsson was once hands down the best defenseman to play in the NHL and was certainly up in the conversation for best offensive defenseman in the game since Bobby Orr. However, he suffered an injury to his Achilles tendon that he just couldn't fully recover from, and he's never been the same since. His smooth skating, his ability ability to drive offense, his solid defense, all of it was just gone. Now EK65 makes $11.5 million per year to do practically nothing at an elite level. There was a time in which he was almost a point per game as a defenseman, but those days are long gone, and Karlsson and his contract sit at the top of our list as the worst contract in the NHL.